This video is another kind of back to basics tutorial for people who are just starting out with this kind of piano playing, with kind of improvising and mucking about as we do. Although, you know, if you've been doing it a while or watching the tutorials for a while, you should still find it useful. As a starting point, I'm using a question that I've been asked by a very nice chap called Andrew Patterson, who posted a question on my video about rock piano, which I'll include a link to. Anyway, Andrew writes, great video, thanks for posting. One question, how do you decide which chord inversions to play? Okay, if you don't understand what that term means, don't worry, I'll come back to it in a second. How do you decide which chord inversions to play? So for example, in this video, the rock piano video, you give an example with E in its second inversion, it's a chord of E major, which we just call E for short, B in its root position, and C sharp minor in its second inversion. Okay. Are you playing them that way to keep the chords close together, or is there a musical reason? Okay, so I've got those three chords, E, B and C sharp minor. Am I choosing those inversions, those shapes, if you like, because I want to keep the chords close together, or because there's a musical reason? The in a nutshell answer to that is that yes, I want to keep the chords close together, and that itself is the musical reason. Okay, so it's about convenience on the piano keyboard, but by keeping the chords convenient and nice and sort of well fitting under the hands, as it were, which we'll come on to in a second, you actually get a better musical effect. First off, just in case you're not sure, let's just go over what chord inversions are. If you're playing a basic three-note chord, which we call a triad, okay, you can play it in one of three positions. So E major, that's the chord we're playing there, has three notes. Any combination, any form of E major you play will be made up of E, G sharp and B, whether it's like that, or you know, wherever, or like that. But when you're playing it in its most basic form, as a triad, it has three basic shapes, and they are root position, where we have the E, the note the chord is named after at the bottom, as the root of the chord, first inversion, and second inversion. Now you'll notice that in each of those inversions we're still playing an E, a G sharp and a B, but in a slightly different order. So root position, first inversion, second inversion. Same goes for the other chords. B, root position, first inversion, second inversion. Or we could do it down here, root position, first inversion, second inversion. C sharp minor, that's our root position, first inversion, second inversion. So it's all a matter of chord shapes. If you're a guitarist, you already do this. So if you play a G in an open position on a guitar and then move up and play it as a bar chord, all you're actually doing is playing different inversions of the chord. So there we go. So the question is, why do I choose those particular inversions? Okay, let's have a look at the context. In that video I was improvising this little chord sequence to demonstrate an accompaniment, and actually it was a 4-chord sequence. There was an A chord in there as well, so it went E, B, C sharp minor, A. Okay, and the actual improvisation I was playing was something like this, which kind of had a bit of embellishment on the chords, but we won't worry about that for now. So, why do I play the chord in that position? Now, when you are first learning this kind of thing on the piano, you kind of learn your chords from a book or online or whatever, and you tend to learn them to start with in root position. Now let's imagine we had those 4 chords and we played them in sequence, but each time, each one in root position. Instead of this, we'd get this, or this. Okay. Now can you hear how the version with the different inversions flows more naturally? Yeah. Instead of. Okay. So the first reason I play the chords in that position is to keep them close together and interlocking if I can, because it's more pleasing. How do I actually make the decision about which inversions to play. Okay, that's what Andrew asks. How do you decide which inversions to play? Well, there are several things at work. Okay, I'm starting with that basic inversion. That happens to be the one I'm starting with. Actually, because maybe the song that I'm comping along to has that as its first note. From there, the inversions I choose of the B, C sharp minor and A chords are dictated by a couple of things. First of all, I want to kind of give it a sense of direction, either up or down, okay? Because those chords kind of form a natural phrase, if you like. Okay, so I want to give them a natural up or down, and it makes sense to follow the line down. So my top note goes like that. If I played them in their root positions, it would be more sort of wiggly, up, down, and listeners wouldn't find it as kind of satisfying. The other thing I'm doing, as far as possible, is looking at where chords share notes and making use of that, and kind of being quite conservative about moving my hand. Yeah. So from that position, okay, I could go and play the B major chord kind of up here, but that inversion falls more naturally under my hand. Okay, so I go for that one. Now the next chord, and obviously there I'm making use of the B, which those two chords have in common. Okay, the next chord, C sharp minor, doesn't have any notes in common with this one. Okay, so I'm going to have to jump, but I'm going to make as small a jump as possible. And really I've got a choice. I could go up here, yeah, but that, to my ears, that's not quite as pleasing because we've been going down, but now suddenly we're going up again. I want that phrase to come on downwards. So I'm going to come down to this one. So I've made a little jump. And my next chord, my final chord, is A. And that's a lovely transition because the only note I need to change is there. Because that's C sharp minor, that's A, they share two notes. Okay? So by doing this, I'm keeping it nice and tight, and we get a nice progression downwards, and we're taking advantage of the shared notes. There are other kind of deeper musical reasons for doing that, and particularly, reasons connected with the overtone series and the way harmonies sound. If you play lots of chords jumping around and you get shapes that, especially shapes that are in parallel with one another, that can cause problems with the way your the way your listeners perceive the chords. Okay. The whole name of that topic is voice leading. So if you're really interested in kind of the background to how this works, look up voice leading for a more kind of detailed explanation. But because of that, you will find that if you go for the most comfortable changes, the natural changes that have a direction where the chords share notes with one another, you will also probably come up with something that is musically pleasing. A really good rule of thumb is sometimes you have to make a jump. So from that B to that C sharp minor, I have to jump, okay, because there are no notes in common. But try not to do two jumps in succession. Okay, so to go from here to here, and then a big jump up to that A there, might not be a great thing. I've still got a note in common, but I've made a massive leap. Okay, sometimes that can work. Maybe you've got the melody making a big jump, or maybe you want a bit of variety because you played this through a few times, but by and large the most satisfying musical sounds will be that, because rather than the chords kind of appearing as separate entities leaping around all over the place, they're kind of organically growing out of one another, and we get this lovely sense of progression and flow. Okay, so the thing to do when you're learning your chords is to have a go at playing the different inversions. Versions and voicings are different. Okay, I've got videos back on that, but it's when you're playing chords in the most basic triads and their closest positions, if you like, that you have to mess about with inversions. Bigger spreads of chords, we use the term voicing, but that's a topic for another day and one that I have covered before. So experiment with lots of different voicings and inversions, and when you go online and find the chords to the particular song you want to play, don't just play each chord in the root position. Try and explore it and get your sequence of 4 chords, whatever they happen to be, and try and find the most natural route through them without jumping around. Because If you do that, it sounds better, it's easier to play, you're less likely to make mistakes, and the whole thing is more kind of organic. So Andrew, I hope that kind of answers your question. You know, how do I decide which inversions to play? Often it's not a conscious decision. Once you get good at this sort of thing, you tend to do this kind of automatically. Okay, but that's the basic thinking behind it. If all of this is still a bit kind of mysterious to you and you want to know more about chords and harmony and how that sort of thing works, check out my book, How to Really Play the Piano. We've got a whole section on harmony and stuff at the start there. You need to be able to read basic music, but you know, nothing terribly complicated is in there. But you know, it'll get you started on this kind of thing. A lot of people apparently find it really useful to work alongside the videos. And there we go. You know, if you have any questions, stick them in the comment thread. I will always try to get back to people on questions, although sometimes it's I do get a bit of a backlog when work is busy. And there we go. Any more ideas for videos you have, let me know, and I will be here again very soon.